but we know that there's not. You can't control the outcome. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift our focus to the things that we can control. That is where our energy is best spent. We can eat better, exercise better, try and sleep better, support our mental health better. Welcome to the 30-something Shift podcast, the podcast where I support women in their 30s move through the real shifts in life that shape our well-being. I'm Liv, a menstrual cycle, fertility and pregnancy yoga teacher. Here we explore our cycles, fertility, conception and pregnancy through yoga, meditation and real conversations. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, I swear I didn't used to ache like this? Or how am I so exhausted from just one late night? Or how am I injured from waking up after sleeping? If you have thought any of these things, you are not alone. You're simply entering your 30s, a decade where things feel different, and we're going to talk about those things today. So there's physical, hormonal, emotional shifts that happen when we reach our 30s, and today we're going to talk about all of them, spread awareness, empower ourselves, and show that these changes are not necessarily something to fear. So let's get into it. I feel like this is a change that nobody really warns you about. When we're told about getting older, we're generally thinking maybe 60s, 70s, and kind of the stereotypes that come with aging in that sense. So it's not really a decade that we're warned much about, but there are so many changes that happen. In your 20s, the thing is, you could pretty much bounce back from anything, right? That's how it felt. You could stay up late, drink caffeine whenever you wanted, skip meals, over-exercise, and you would generally bounce back really quickly from those things. Even if you got ill, anything that happened, it just felt like your body was able to recover a lot quicker. And that can be quite a hard change to get your head around, because it's like, I can't do what I used to be able to do. And you find some frustration in your body feeling different than it did in your 20s. But we're going to sort of shift the narrative today and find the positive of the changes that happen in our 30s, and to know that, of course, we're not getting old. We're simply just aging and adapting and embracing those changes that come with it. So how is this showing up in our 30s? What are these changes that we're noticing? So the way I like to look at it is that your body is just a little less tolerant of being ignored. So those things that we used to maybe do in our 20s, skipping meals, over-exercising, lacking sleep, it's not that our body didn't need those things, but it was more tolerant and it was able to recover quickly. So now we might need more sleep, maybe longer recovery from injury or just from a workout. When you get that aching feeling, you might need a bit longer to recover. You may have more tension, aches and pains, and also stress may affect you differently or more physically than it did in your 20s. Obviously, your stress has changed. The things that cause you stress have changed since your 20s, but also the way that you process that and the way that your body manages that, you may also notice a change as well. So these are the kind of how the changes are coming up in our 30s. And the more we learn about it and accept the change. Listen, I hate change. I'm one of those people. I'm a routine girl. I'm a homebody. I really don't like things changing. But we have to accept it. We have to embrace the change, and then we can actually use it for good. We can see the positivity in it, and we can embrace the change rather than fighting against it. So one of the most significant things I noticed in my 30s were hangovers. Now, I don't drink at the moment because I'm on a fertility journey. I haven't drank in a while. But what I did notice when I got to my sort of late 20s and 30s was that hangovers just hit totally different. And it was all about this recovery that we're talking about, right? Like in your early 20s, you stay up all night drinking and you'd seem to just be able to live the next day like nothing had happened. That is long gone. It takes me about a week to recover from a night of drinking these days. And that is simply just your body not being able to process it as quickly, taking a little bit longer to recover. And there's nothing wrong with that. And this isn't to say that you can't drink or that you shouldn't have hangovers in your 30s, of course not. But it's being aware of those changes and maybe just understanding that that's why it feels harder, rather than thinking that you did something wrong. just accepting, embracing that change. The hangovers hit a little bit differently than they used to. Another thing is caffeine. So as you know, I'm a huge coffee lover and I've never really had to track my caffeine before. I would drink caffeine throughout the day, throughout the evening, up until bedtime and not really think much of it. Since I've been looking more into fertility and my wellbeing journey, I've noticed that if I have caffeine too late in the day, it affects my sleep. And I'm such a sleep geek. I'm really precious of my sleep and getting the best possible sleep I can. I have a whole podcast episode on how to improve your sleep naturally, so head back to that one to have a listen. But the thing is, caffeine affects me differently now than it did in my 20s. I now limit myself. I don't have as much during the day and I stop about 3 o'clock. Don't have any up until bed in case it affects my sleep. Now, it might sound a bit boring. It might sound a bit, oh, you're not enjoying a coffee, but I just have it earlier in the day. And it's about accepting that my body has changed. And I'm not going to fight against that. I'm not going to rebel and have coffee all the way up to bedtime just because I don't like the change. It's about taking control of our well-being and saying, I see this change, I'm different now than I was then, and this is how I'm going to adapt to that. And you still get to enjoy those wonderful things. I would never recommend giving up coffee. I couldn't do it. I don't want to do it, but I can just adapt the time that I drink it to help my sleep. I'm okay to kind of make that sacrifice. So it's just a mindset game, really, of accepting the change and then adapting it so it still fits you, you still have fun, you're still doing the things you want to do, just with that extra awareness that our 30s are just hitting a little bit differently than our 20s did. So another thing that you may notice change is your menstrual cycle. So hormones change, our body's response to them change as we get a bit older, and you may notice that your menstrual cycle is different. Now, this may be different in a good way and it may be different in a bad way, it just depends. If you haven't really been tracking, you may not notice it so much, but if you have a little reflection back maybe to how your cycles were in your 20s, you may just notice some differences. For me, my periods are actually easier to manage in my 30s than they were in my 20s. My early to mid 20s, I had really severe heavy bleeding and cramps during my periods. They were really, really difficult to manage. I don't have that so much anymore. They're a lot easier to manage since I've got a bit older and entered my 30s. I don't know if that would have happened anyway, or whether it's my lifestyle changes and my well-being sort of awareness that's helped with that. Also, if I'm stressed, I notice the change because I'm used to them not being as difficult anymore. So when I have a difficult month, I know that it's been caused by the stress. So I think my lifestyle factors have made an impact on that, but also our hormones change as we age. Our bodies change. You know, people can grow out of allergies, they can get allergies they didn't used to have. You know, this is all signs that our bodies are changing constantly, and that's okay. Again, awareness is so key, because I think it's so easy to just go day by day, accepting what's happening in your body, not showing that much awareness to it and just kind of getting on with it. But the thing with that is awareness is the first step to change, and change is a great thing, especially when you're in charge of that change. When I was talking earlier about the fact that I hate change, doesn't mean I don't choose to change anything, right? It's when change happens upon us and we're not prepared for it and we don't like the uncertainty. It's quite a human reaction. But when we're in charge of the change and we've decided to make that change, it can be a really empowering thing and a really positive thing. So first of all, showing awareness. How is my body changing? How are my cycles different? And then take that power of what can I do about it? We are not just at the mercy of our hormones. We can make changes. We can do things to make our cycles easier and more enjoyable and more manageable. So you may have noticed your cycles changing, and I've got tons of resources, yoga and meditation, to help with every phase of your cycle. So if you do struggle to manage your cycle, whatever decade you're in, then have a look at those resources. I'll pop them all in the show notes. So also, speaking about our cycles, another thing that will be coming up in this decade is fertility. And there's this, and I really don't like this expression of the biological clock, but I'm going to use it. It's a concept everyone kind of knows about, and you'll know what I'm talking about when I say that. But there's an automatic pressure when a woman enters her 30s of, do I want children? If you already knew you did, when am I going to have children? There's kind of an automatic society pressure on us when we enter our 30s. And yes, it's true that we don't have all the time in the world. We can't wait until our 50s and then decide, because obviously the way that our reproductive organs work is that we are restricted to having them sooner than that. But that doesn't mean that you're behind, that you're late, and that you're not going to be able to make that dream come true. If you've entered your 30s and it's something that you want, you can absolutely still do it well into your 40s. Women are having babies older and older. Science is supporting us. Again, our knowledge, our understanding of the human body is helping us to be able to carry children later in life. So please don't feel like you're behind, or that it's too late, or that that's something that's never going to happen for you, because it absolutely can. If you're somebody that isn't sure still, and you feel this pressure from society that you're in your 30s and you should either have children or at least know you want children, please try not to let that pressure get to you. Focus on what you want. You will know. Trust your instincts. You will know if it's something that you want. Don't let these external pressures, and I know it's easy to say, but try not to let these external pressures dictate what you want. You will know if that's something that you want, and if it is, you can absolutely make that come true. There's another thing in our 30s that we face, but again, you may have been doing other things. You may be prioritizing other things in your 20s that you've achieved, your career, your family life, traveling, whatever it is that you wanted to do. So it makes sense that you didn't have a child until now. So your life will fall into place. You're following what you want to do. The timing will make sense when it happens. And I know that's really hard to accept when you want something, but honestly, it's happened to me so many times when the timing has clicked and I've gone, oh, that's why it didn't happen until now. So your time will come. Stay with it, stay positive, stay empowered, and do what you can to make that come true if it's something that you want. Again, I have tons of resources around fertility. So if you are on a fertility or conception journey, have a look in the show notes to see how I can support you. So talking about the things that we can do on a fertility journey, we have to shift our mindset. It's something I talk about a lot. Letting go of the control of the outcome that you can't change. You can't change the ultimate outcome. I wish there was a guarantee. I would give it to every single person that wanted a baby if there was a guarantee out there. But we know that there's not. You can't control the outcome. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift our focus to the things that we can control. That is where our energy is best spent. We can eat better, exercise better, try and sleep better, support our mental health better. And these things can help us along the journey, but also there are things you can do that can improve your chances of success. So take the power of your own journey and do those things that can increase your likelihood of falling pregnant. We know there's no guarantee, but we absolutely know there are things that you can do that will improve your chances. But more than that, I want you to think about supporting yourself through this journey, doing all these things to better yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, preparing yourself for motherhood, yes, but also just taking care of yourself. Take back empowerment on this journey, that you're not just waiting for these outcomes that you have no control over. You have say, you have power, and you have control over how you travel on this journey that you're on. And that is really important mindset shift to take if you're on a fertility journey in your 30s. So also stress hits differently too, right? It's likely that in this decade you've got more responsibilities, more mental load, maybe more dependence, things that rely on you than you did in your early 20s. And all those things are wonderful things, yeah? There's no guilt around the stress that sometimes those things come with, because they were what you wanted and that's okay. But stress hits differently. You wake up and you have a lot of things on your mind, a lot of things to balance, a lot of things to manage. And that can get really overwhelming and it can feel really lonely. Even if you feel like you have support, carrying that mental load, which is something that women tend to do, we take on as much as we possibly can and we carry that with us, can become really overwhelming and really lonely fast. So being able to manage your stress is important at any age, and I'm talking a 2-year-old struggling with their emotions all the way through life. Managing stress is such an important tool and an important thing you need to learn. But in your 30s, it's going to matter more than it did in your 20s. And stresses come at all phases of life, of course. But this mental load, this extra responsibility that we're carrying, may be more overwhelming to you at the moment. So if that is you, please know you're not alone. And finding ways to manage your stress is a really vital thing to take care of your well-being, because stress impacts it all. Stress impacts every body system, every part of you, every part of your life will be impacted by chronic stress. Living in a fight or flight mode constantly or for a majority of the time has really, really damaging effects on all areas of your body, your mental health, as well as all your systems and your physical health. So managing your stress is really, really important to get on top of. Again, I have resources to help you with that if you need help managing your stress. Okay, so what can we do? So you need to manage your stress. That's probably the number one tip I can give you in your 30s. Manage your stress however you do that, however you find that it works for you. You need to prioritize that as part of your well-being routine. Also rest. Another thing we tend to neglect. We keep getting through, doing that to-do list, all those responsibilities. We tend to neglect rest. And I'm not just talking about sleep, although that is extremely important, but also just resting, just doing things that are calming, enjoyable, and not constantly living in that adrenaline fight or flight mode. You may exercise differently. You may be focused more on strength. So having more protein and building up your muscles is a really nice way to feel empowered in your 30s and to build strength in a different way. You could be fitter and stronger in your 30s than you could be in your 20s easily if that's what you wanted to do. See that mindset shift, taking power of your journey and embracing those changes for the better. Also, learn your cycle. This is important whether you're in your teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, but if you don't track or have some kind of awareness of your cycle, then I really recommend that you start. It doesn't have to be a strict thing, just mark it on a calendar if that's easier. There are loads of apps that you can record all symptoms if that's what you want to do. You can journal it, however fits best for you and doesn't feel like another task on your long to-do list. But tracking is a really, really powerful way of managing each phase of your cycle better and aligning with the natural changes and energy levels that come with each phase will mean that you're working at your optimum level at every phase of your cycle throughout the entire month. It is really a game changer, and this is why I talk about it so much on here. I talk about it in my classes, I talk about it in my emails, because I'm so passionate about it. And when I started tracking and changing the way I dealt with my cycle, it changed everything, and it's not an exaggeration. It really is such an important thing that you can do. And I think with all the changes going on in our 30s, if there's a time to start doing it, it's now. Stress is the key. Stress levels, whatever phase really, but in our 30s, they're different, they're stronger, there's more going on. And the world we live in today, right, there's a lot out there as well. So finding a way to support your nervous system is going to really be the big thing to take away from this. And I've got things that can help you with that. Yoga, meditation have been proven again and again to reduce stress levels, to improve the nervous system, and keeping us in that parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest, taking us out of the fight or flight. They're opposites. Fight or flight, we want to be in this rest and digest, this parasympathetic nervous system is our goal. And yoga and meditation can absolutely help you with that and give you time in the day when you're living in that calm state, in contrast to the stressful state. It can't take away the stresses, of course. If they're real stressors in your life, then they're there. But having time, 10, 15, 20 minutes when you're living in that parasympathetic, that calming nervous system state, can really make an impact and give your body time to recover for when it's having to manage all the stresses. Thank you so much for listening through today. I hope that you're feeling empowered and inspired to look at the changes you may be facing in your 30s with a different mindset and a new light. Remember that knowledge is power, and the more you learn about your body, the more aware you are of those changes that you're facing as a woman in her 30s, the more that you can embrace that, align with it, and live your best life in your 30s. Thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss another episode. And if you're listening on your favourite streaming platform, Spotify or Apple Podcast, then follow along so that you get notified when the next episode drops next week. Thank you so much and take care, everyone.